Thank you for joining us on our Committee on Education. We have one resolution to hear today. This is Senate Concurrent Resolution 134, Senate Resolution 113, which urges the Department of Education to provide a detailed report to the legislature on the true cost of producing school meals to ensure transparency and avoid unnecessary price increases. To testify, DOE, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Kidani, Vice Chair Kim, members of the committee. Cheetah, Deputy Superintendent with the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony which provides comments on this measure. The school food service branch currently has a system in place to identify the cost of preparing school meals and releases both quarterly and annual fiscal reports that are available to the public. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And can we get a copy of your testimony, please? Anyone else here wishing to testify, Ms. Vega?
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, Senator Kanuha, Nate Hicks, Hawaii Public Health Institute, in support. As you've heard us testify before, we're advocating for free school meals for all of our students, and we recognize that increasing costs in the production of meals might get passed on to families, further hindering their ability to eat during the school day. And so making sure costs are kept low can help make sure our students are fed, since food insecurity is such a issue within our state. So mahalo for considering this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Anyone else here wishing to testify? Angela?
Angela Melody Young cares, providing comments. So while I can't deny that transparency in the school system relating to school meals is a very necessary goal, and yet I think the logistical concerns of this resolution is that, for example, could it be an administrative burden because you would have to employ teams to get this done? And instead, yet, I think what would be a more feasible strategy to approach this by is to do training at schools where if you have passionate teams that can learn to teach Excel spreadsheets, and so each school in the complex can then do Excel spreadsheets and then calculate the operational costs, and then learn about how to gather information and receipts and accounting processes for materials and supplies. I think it would be much more achievable with this plan at the school systems, and very, non-traditional, unconventional way. But I think in this generation, it works. Yeah. And of course, the overall goal of health and nutrition is very important in the schools. Thank you.
Anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Recess. Members, questions? Question? DOE? So if I heard the testimony correct, it sounded as though we don't need this resolution, you're saying?
Yeah, we have the information available to the public right now.
So, but is it break down the cost?
I believe so.
Can you give us an example what cost is, how it's working out?
I think we have it like, it comes up to like 1466 for breakfast and lunch, total costs.
No,
Food
but is
and-
it broken down, like how much for labor, how much for food for preparation, how much for, you ever broken down? Because that's what this resol is asking for, right? Ingredients, cost of ingredients, operational cost, beverage cost, material and supply cost, logistical and distribution cost. Is that already?
I don't think it's that detailed, because we have the labor costs all in one, and then the food costs is all in one.
But that's what this resol is saying. So if you don't have that, then so that's not provided.
I don't think so, no.
But you can provide that.
I would have to go back and see if we can break it down that far.
Okay. Thank you. Members, further questions?
So I guess for DOE, when you saw that you're over budget in school, meals, did someone go in and really understand what is the cost driver? Is it a material thing? Is it labor costs? Do we know right now why the cost driver is so high?
I think it was the cost of food and our budget was flat, so I think we started off without sufficient funds to cover the cost of the food.
But so nobody was projecting though what the costs were going to be, or was that a surprise, or was that anticipated and we just didn't give you extra money? What was the case?
I think we knew the cost was gonna go up because of inflation and everything. But I'm not sure if we could project that deficit. I think we figured it out after probably in the last few months, we knew we were gonna be in a hole.
So has anyone gone in though to do a full accounting of where the cost drivers are though? Like, they have one of your staffers just like took time to just look at all the expenses and see where things are at the moment, or is it just you're just looking at high level numbers of what they're reporting?
Yeah, we're looking at the only cost we're really focusing on is the cost of the food, because the operational costs, I don't think we have it broken down the way that the reso wants it broken down.
Because I would imagine if you know what the cost drivers are, then you can start figuring out, okay, can we get a better deal, or can we cut, or we move around stuff? Because has there been a strategic look at food service and where we're spending the dollars?
I don't understand. If you want us to reduce the cost of the purchase of food?
I'm just saying that you should be looking at it, and maybe there's a different way that you can do things. But you won't know that unless you do the analysis. So I'm assuming there is no analysis of how the money is spent at this point. You're just saying, okay, the money spent, it is what it is. We're not going to change the way we do business. Is that my assessment of how things are at the moment?
I don't think we're saying that. I think we recognize that the food cost is going to go up.
But the question is did you do the analysis though? Did you start digging down and getting, looking at line by line where things are going to see if there are patterns of, okay, this is going up higher than we projected or quicker than we projected. And maybe that's something that then you can make operational decisions based on that, or are you just assuming, okay, this is the full number, which it sounds like, right? So you haven't done that analysis then?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Further questions?
Yeah, I want to just follow up. I know the whole intent at some point, as it was brought up in testimony about doing full free school lunch across the board. And this apparently will help us to see what the cost is, but have you folks estimated as to if the federal government does not continue to supplement school lunches, what the entire cost would be to the state for across the board school lunches, free school lunches?
We're looking at it right now. I think we're focusing on making the reduced lunches free, and then probably next fiscal year making the Alice families free. And that's been the focus right now during the session. But I think what's happening in Washington, I think we're beginning to look at what that number might be. I don't think we have it right now.
And if you add in the Alice families and you add in the reduced lunches, what's left, what portion of the student body that is actually paying for the school lunch would be?
The
Percentage.
Alice people are currently paying whatever the food, right? We're trying to figure out if it's 250 or 300% of the poverty level that's Alice cut off. And so everybody above that would be paying.
Yeah, but what percentage of students would be paying that?
We don't have that number right now because we don't have the data that we can sort the families by their poverty level.
So are you working on getting us those numbers at some point?
Yeah, we're trying to work with the system that we use to sort the free and reduced applications to see if we can call those numbers out from the application forms that people are filing.
And at some point, if we do that, the funding has to come from somewhere. And where are we anticipating that money comes from?
We probably have to come back in next session with once we do the analysis to tell you what that number might be.
So general fund monies would have to
Yeah.
go, that has to get cut from someplace.
Yeah, and then if you, like you're saying, if the federal government reduces the reimbursement or eliminates, it's gonna put us in a whole different, problem, right? So we're looking at all the numbers right now, in fact.
Okay. Because I know, they talk about universal free school lunches, but the cost, I
Mhm.
mean, if we don't print money like the federal government, so somebody's program gonna get cut.
I
right?
agree, right?
Okay, thank you.
So Dean, when was the last time that the cost of lunches was raised, breakfast or lunches?
Was increased.
Mhm.
We tried to go to the board earlier this year with a staggered increase, because I think the statute says they have to pay a minimum of 50% of the cost of the meal.
Mhm.
So we staggered it over a 5-year period to get us to that 50% number. But the governor's office intervened and said they didn't want to do the increase in the food meals. And he was going to send a governor's message down to cover the cost, at least for this year. So we never increased the price of the school meals. Well, the board never approved it.
Is he sending it down this year?
I believe so.
Well, my understanding was that at the Board of Ed meeting that the DOE asked for an increase up to $4.50, is that correct?
Yeah, we did it over, like I said, a 5-year period. It was staggered over 5 years to get to that 50% number.
And what was the response from the Board of Education?
I think I don't think they took action because I think the governor's office had intervened at that point.
Lunch is at 250, right?
Yeah, 250 or 275. What it was.
250.
Yeah, for up to grade 8. And 275 for.
So is the intention of the board not to take any action? Because I would assume that at some point you gotta raise it something. You can't just keep it the same forever.
Well, I think this year is taken care of from the governor's message. If the law stays the same, then the board will have to take action again.
But if you don't start now, like, even if it's a quarter increase, you gotta start something, right? So but the board thinks they can just kick the can down the road and not good, because over time you want it to be, you want it to be very incremental over time.
Correct.
So if you take no action now, you're just kind of
I
saying.
think there's legislation to try and reduce that 50% down to something, another percentage, like 25% or something. So that's a bill that I think was moving this session.
No, we passed that bill, but still, I would think the board should be a little bit more proactive or at least what are you guys proposing something?
Well, if the bill takes effect, then, there's no chance of getting a governor's message next year. We're gonna have to go back to the board, make sure we're hitting that, whatever that percentage is.
Because maybe over 5 years, instead of 5 years, it's over 10 years and you just, quarter every year or something.
Well, I think if it goes down to 25%, I think that's kind of where we are right now, what we're charging right now.
Okay, and then you're just gonna depend on coming back then and increasing your.
Well, if the
school
percentage
lunch.
gets reduced from 50 to 25, we're charging the 25% right now. In fact, we might be above it a little bit.
But it's not gonna probably stay that for long. I would assume costs are gonna increase, so shouldn't we? I would hope that you're gonna be more proactive than reactive.
When was the last time the school lunches were
I
increased?
think it was like before the pandemic. I think it's the exact year. I don't recall offhand.
And do you know the percent of students receiving free or reduced lunch?
Free and reduced, the problem with getting the numbers is we have different numbers for breakfast. There's 2 different breakfasts and then the free. So we don't know the number, but I can give you the percentage of the 104,000 meals we serve a day. About 45% is free and about 8% is reduced.
$104,000 meals per day.
Right.
How many students in our schools?
About 155 maybe thousand.
And currently, does the federal reimbursement cover all of the free and reduced meals?
They cover, yeah, the majority of it. It's not 100% that they cover.
You don't know the percentage.
Not offhand, but I can get that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And what assurances do you have, or do you have any assurance that this reimbursement from the feds will continue?
I don't want to speculate, but we're hoping that it stays in place. I mean, so far they haven't done anything to USDA except some of the grants. But the meal reimbursement hasn't been brought up for any changes as far as we know.
But is it addressed every year at the federal level? Or, do you have to go back every so many years to request the reimbursement, or it's automatically given?
It's usually automatic. Right now, USDA is looking and they send a team down to analyze our cost and our process to see if we can increase the reimbursement amount from the federal government.
And when will that?
It's ongoing right now. I'm not sure when their final report is gonna come out. Because I think Alaska has a higher reimbursement than we do, and we're trying to get up close to what Alaska gets.
Thank you. Members, further questions? Okay. If no further questions, member, let's call for the vote. Recommendation would be to pass. As is, yeah.
Okay. Recommendation to pass SCR 134 and SR 113 unamended. The chair votes
Votes aye.
aye, vice chair votes aye, Senator Hashimoto.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Decord.
Aye.
5 ayes, recommended adopted.
Thank you.
Recommendations to adopt.
Thank you. Hearings adjourned.